All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the next chapter. In my first video, I shared a little bit about who I am and why I started this channel. Well, today I'd like to tell you a story. Actually, it's one of the most important lessons I learned my entire career. And the interesting thing is, it didn't come from a CEO. It didn't come from a best-selling business book. It didn't even come from a college professor. It came from a young accountant sitting a few feet away from me during my very first job after graduate school. So after earning my master's of accountancy from the University of Georgia, go Dogs, I joined a large public accounting firm here in the Atlanta area. I was a young tax associate trying to learn everything I could. There was also another associate on our team. I'll call him Ron. Ron was incredibly talented. In fact, Ron had developed an extensive spreadsheet-based work paper system for our tax practice. This was back in the Quattro Pro days before Excel became the spreadsheet standard. So our entire workflow depended on what Ron had built. The tax professionals prepared the work papers, and then another team used them to complete the tax returns. Everything flowed through the system Ron had created. So from my perspective, if anyone in that office was indispensable, it was Ron. So one day I remember telling him how impressed I was with what he had built. I expected him to feel proud. Instead, he looked at me and he said something that completely caught me off guard. Here's what he said. "They can get rid of me anytime they want." 9 words. That's it. 9 words. At the time, I honestly didn't understand what he meant. I remember thinking, Ron, if anyone has job security around here, it's you. You're one of the smartest people in the office. The entire process depends on what you've created. How could you possibly think that? But as the years went by, I realized that Ron was not being pessimistic. He was being realistic. He understood something that I didn't yet understand. No matter how valuable we become, no matter how hard we work, no matter how much coworkers appreciate us, no job is guaranteed forever. So years later, after spending time in another organization, I joined a large Fortune 500 company. And just a few months after I arrived, the company went through its first major restructuring. People who had spent decades believing they'd retire there suddenly realized that nothing stays the same forever. I remember our department being told that we were going to be okay, which was a great relief. So I turned to one of my coworkers, I'll call her Marcy, and said, well, I guess we're good. Marcy looked at me, smiled just a little, and replied with 2 words. For now. 2 words. Just like Ron's 9 words years earlier, those 2 words stayed with me. Today, almost 3 decades later, I can honestly say that those 2 conversations shaped how I've thought about my career ever since. Not because they made me fearful. They did exactly the opposite. They helped me focus on the things I could actually control. I can't control restructurings. I can't control the economy. I can't control changes in leadership. I can't control mergers. I can't control layoffs. But I can control whether I'm learning, whether I'm building skills, whether I'm maintaining my integrity, whether I'm investing, whether I'm saving, whether I'm preparing. Over time, I realized something. The purpose of all that preparation wasn't simply to accumulate wealth. It was to create choices. That's a word you're going to hear me use quite a bit on this channel. Optionality. To me, optionality means building a life where your future isn't dependent on one employer, one paycheck, or one decision made in a conference room you'll never walk into. It means creating enough financial independence that work gradually becomes more of a choice than a necessity. Ironically, those conversations with Ron and Marcy didn't make me less committed to my career. They actually made me more intentional about preparing for whatever came after it. Ron didn't know it that day, and Marcy probably didn't know it years later. But together, Ron and Marcy changed the way I've thought about my career for the last 30 years. They taught me that I couldn't control every decision made about me, but I could control how prepared I was for whatever decision came next. And that's why I believe the goal isn't simply to build a career, it's to build a life with choices. And that's one of the reasons I started this channel, because I know many of us in our 40s, 50s, and beyond are asking the same questions. How do I prepare for the next chapter? How do I create more freedom? How do I build a life with more choices? Those are the conversations I hope we'll continue having together. So thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about a lesson that you've learned during your own career that changed the way you think about work or life. Until next time, keep building your skills, keep building your future, and keep building your optionality. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.